All right, guys, I think it's telling me that we are now live for another Thursday night of conversations with Commodores, and we just keep rolling through this. We've done almost 40 of these during this year. I've got another 15 lined up in the upcoming weeks. I am going to take a week or two off if that's okay with you all toward the end of this month for the holiday. But as I said earlier today, if you go on the site, you'll be able to look in the announcements section, and that's where I put the upcoming schedule of folks who are going to be future guests. And my guest this evening, I'm so pleased, Birmingham native, Vanderbilt alum, sports writer, author extraordinaire. And if you don't follow his blog, you're missing out, guys. We've got David White with us this evening. Good evening, David. It's good to see you, bud.
Hey, Bernard, how are you?
I'm doing great, great. And guys, I'm going to I've already put in the show description, but I'll put in the notes the link to David's website, and that'll be able to get you to get on his blog posts that come out so frequently. But David, before I butcher any more of your resume and your strong background in sports, please share with us a little bit more in detail about yourself so folks will know.
Bernard, I'm just impressed with what you're doing. That's phenomenal. But anyway, I'm an 84 grad of Vanderbilt and an alumnus, and I've been in the sports writing business for 36 years now. I started in 1986. I was at various papers, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, in North Carolina, and Chapel Hill, Durham, and did that for 30 years, maybe 28, 27 years. And then I've started this, I've written 4 books, Leadership Lessons for Life, Shorty of Life in Sports, both football books, both nonfiction, 2 fiction pieces. And one of them is A Man of Character, and the other one is The Stroke of Genius. And so those came out in the 2000s, mid 2000s. And I started this blog in 2009, and I've been very involved with it. It's columns, sports columns, a lot of college football, a lot of college basketball, a lot of college baseball. I've got a Vanderbilt blog, and I do all Vanderbilt sports on that, everything, football, basketball, baseball, men's golf, women's tennis, women's soccer, just anything that's going well at Vanderbilt, I'm going to write about. And I'm a very positive person about Vanderbilt. I love Vanderbilt. I love the people from Vanderbilt, and just passionate about it. And so, yeah, that's where I am right now.
That's how you came on my radar. I came across your blog probably 2 years ago and have been an active reader. And I love all the short snippets of great content. So I applaud your passion and your efforts, and I hope you continue to do it for many more years. But David, if folks want to jump on the train, so to speak, and follow your blog, do they just go to your website and then sign up?
Yes, Bernard, they can go to David at davidhwhite.com, and something will pop up for them to put their email address, and they'll click on that, and that's all they have to do. Put in their email address and click on send, and they'll be on. So,
well, David, take us back to your youth, your childhood, high school, college. Where did you get your love of sports? Did you play sports as a kid?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Bernard, I think I started reading Sports Illustrated when I was 5 years old. I loved sports since an early age. I was a quarterback on my elementary team, and then I played running back in high school, and pretty good player, not a college player, but a pretty good high school player. I played basketball some, I ran track, I played baseball. I just remember so much about great games and great moments in sports. And my wife, I kind of wear her out with it probably, but I love a great sports story, and I love playing sports. I played some lacrosse and soccer in college, just club team stuff, and played some fraternity football and basketball and baseball. So just have always loved it. I played out of college. I played different sports, soccer and rugby and stuff like that. So, I'm still active athletically. I box and do stuff like that.
Oh,
You
very
know,
good.
I love it. I love sports, Bernard. It was what I was born to do, I think. So,
Well,
that's kind of what.
you've clearly combined two of your passions in life, the love of sports and the love of writing. Now, when you were at Vanderbilt in the early 80s, you were there during some great offensive years. I think it was the Whit Taylor and Kurt Page era, and all kind of offensive records were set. Do you have any memories of games, seeing the guys or hanging out on campus, any of those things?
Bernard, I have a couple great memories. Whit Taylor against Tennessee in 1980 or 81.
Mhm.
I may have been a senior in high school. And Whit Taylor ran for a touchdown to beat Tennessee. It was just phenomenal. I was listening to it on the radio at my house, and I remember that perfectly. And then what was the guy's name? Kurt, the quarterback. Kurt Page, yeah. Kurt Page in 82 beating Florida. And, he had some great games. He was a great player. Both of them were. They were phenomenal players. And I remember just after I got out of school, Greg Zolman, the lefty, he was a lefty in 85 playing for George McIntyre. He was phenomenal. I was working up in D.C. and he was playing Maryland and really threw for 5 touchdowns. I mean, you might have been on that team. I'm not sure if it was before.
My era was the late 80s under Watson Brown. Zolman played after me. So he was several years.
Oh, he played after you. Yeah, Zolman. Yeah, there was a lefty for Vanderbilt. I can't remember his name, but he was really good. And I was in D.C. and went to College Park and watched Vanderbilt play Maryland, and he was phenomenal.
Well, if any of you guys
we won. And
call that game or who was quarterback, and throw it in the comments section for us.
So I can't remember that one.
Well, David, let's talk about your sports blog and how you got started writing the Vanderbilt blog about all the varsity sports that are going on, and what prompted that? Where did it come from? Where do you get your information? I guess you really shouldn't ask a reporter that, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Bernard, I just started getting into it when, I guess in the early 2000s, I started emailing Tim Corbin, and, just asking questions about the program and when we were starting to take off, and, in the mid 2000s. And Corbs, I emailed him at first. I thought, well, he probably won't get back to me. Immediately, he got back to me within 10 minutes. And this was right after the College World Series. We weren't in it, but I mean, he was phenomenal. So I started getting really passionate about baseball, and I've always been passionate about football. I really love Bobby Johnson. I thought he was the greatest guy. I loved the guy. I mean, I thought he was a phenomenal Southern gentleman, and I thought he was a pretty good football coach. And so I followed us a lot in those years. And then Franklin really took it to another level. James Franklin was an amazing coach. I mean, what he did at Vanderbilt is phenomenal. And then, I personally really like Derek Mason. I really like him as a person. I mean, it didn't work out, but he always gave me time to talk. So I've interviewed Corbs all the time. I interviewed Derek Mason a lot. I interviewed Jeff McDonald, the women's coach, Scott Limbaugh, the men's golf coach. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to Bryce Drew. I've talked a little bit to Jerry Stackhouse, excited about him. So yeah, I'm passionate about it. And I've talked to a lot of these guys, and I started just writing general emails to different people and sending them to blind copy a bunch of people. But then, once I got this blog, I said, well, I'm just going to make a Vanderbilt blog out of it in 2010. And so just been writing about Vanderbilt as much as I possibly can, and, enjoying it.
As I said earlier, for any of you who read David's work, clearly the passion is there, as is the knowledge. The man knows his Vanderbilt sports, and it really is a great read. It's always very positive. While a lot of the news sometimes with our different sports is not positive, we've had the last decade, it's been pretty unprecedented in Vanderbilt history across the board, with majority of the sports, with several national championships, not just the baseball program. But you mentioned Coach Corbin earlier, and he really sets the standard, not just for the SEC, but really nationwide. And one of the highest compliments that I've heard, being a guy in Birmingham, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I've heard from many folks that the Vanderbilt baseball program, the Vandy Boys, is kind of the equivalent of Alabama football when it comes to getting recruits and who they want to come to campus, and then the results that the coaches get it.
Bernard, I look at the other way. I say Alabama football is the Vanderbilt baseball of football. So, my point is, Bernard, I mean, it's so impressive what Corbin's doing. I'd say Vanderbilt and the Dodgers are the two best teams in baseball, the two best programs in baseball. And I sincerely say that. I mean, just what Corbs has done is just beyond spectacular. And what he's going to do is beyond spectacular too. So
it's no coincidence that two Vandy boys are on the Dodgers right now. Granted, Price didn't play this year, but Buehler, certainly he did his year.
Yeah. Walker throwing it 99 to 100 and, just an unhittable guy. I mean, a lot of time he's unhittable. He's going to win a Cy Young soon.
Yeah, he certainly has made himself one of the top 5 or 6 pitchers in professional baseball right now. But David, before we jump into the meat of the 2 biggest stories for this week, I want to mention briefly 2 things. We want to wish, there was an announcement this afternoon that Joe Fisher has resigned his position, announcing for the Vanderbilt Sports, and has checked himself into rehab. Joe's been there for more than 20 years. We all love his calls. I love listening to his baseball on the radio, but we certainly wish him the very best. Hope he gets to where he needs to be, and I'd love for him to come back when it's time. So I wanted to mention that. The other thing I wanted to mention, for those of you who've been following us on the Facebook group and my conversation with Alfonso Harvey earlier this week, I culled through almost 300 and some odd, about 325 comments from you guys from this past week. Such passion, such great information. I put it into 7 or 8 categories, as y'all saw on the site. I sent it over to Alfonso Harvey today. Alfonso did share it already with Dr. Lee, and he's gotten some feedback. Alfonso just posted on the group. In the group, there's an interactive document for you guys to go in, and please take a few minutes. You guys wanted an audience, you wanted a platform, and now we've got it. So please take every advantage of it so we can make sure that our voice is heard. If y'all want to be part of the equation with the Vanderbilt football program, I think they're giving us an opportunity. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned those things as well. And thank you to everybody who has commented, and hopefully more of you will. But anyway, let's move it on. David, doesn't matter to me the order in which we go in, but I certainly see it as 2 equally important issues. But gosh, with Sarah Fuller doing what she did this past week, making history, and at the same time, Coach Mason was relieved of his duties, and now we've got about a 2-week or about a 15-day window between now and the early signing period for football, in which Dr. Lee has already come out and made some public information known that they're going to use a search firm and those kind of things, but that doesn't preclude everybody taking their speculations as to who's going to be the coach. So anyway, why don't we start with Sarah, and then we'll come to the coaching issue. What was your take on seeing Sarah and all the information, and gosh, such positive feedback in social media all over the place and within the program too? I saw a lot of positive information there as well from the guys on the team.
It was very exciting, Bernard. I was so excited for her. A lot of my friends were commenting on the blog that they were hoping Sarah Fuller kicked the game-winning field goal against Missouri. She didn't get a chance to kick a field goal, but she did kick off, so that was great, and it was really powerful. It's a great thing, and I hope the players are good with it. They're fine with that because it's a historic thing, and that's really awesome. So that was a great thing, and I'm hoping she gets a chance to kick this weekend. On Coach Mason, I I was sorry he had to go, but the record was a record in the SEC was 10-46 and 27-55 overall. It just, just wasn't good enough. And we need a Tim Corbin in football. And we had James Franklin, but it was just 3 years. We can't just have some guy who's using us as a stepping stone. We need somebody who's dedicated to Vanderbilt. We need somebody who believes and who has a vision that he wants to, go to the playoff even. I mean, go that far, think that way. And it may not happen, but think that way. It could happen. And so there are candidates out there who I like, who I've been reading about. And, there's a committee working on it. It's Corbin and Dr. Lee and McClellan and a couple others. And looks like Chancellor Dearmeyer. So, we've got a lot of candidates, and it's a coveted job. So, do you want me to get in who could be a coach? Who could be our coach? Or
I wanted to tell you a couple of things that I've noticed and that I'm also encouraged about. One, where Dr. Lee said she called every commitment, the kids who've made commitments to the football program to sign this December. She spoke to every one of them, she said, and I thought that was extraordinary. I don't know if other ADs do that kind of thing or how it's handled behind the scenes, but I see that as a very positive thing. The other thing that I'm highly encouraged about is that the administration, for the first time that I recognize or that I've been aware about, is outwardly encouraging the full student athlete experience, not just the academic part, not just the experience about being on campus, but also those who are athletes, how important it is for that part of the experience, which to me, and again, it leaves to be seen what will happen when the chancellor and Dr. Lee are both in communication with each other and publicly commenting on their positive move, hopefully, toward getting things done in a better environment, a better experience for the guys and gals who are playing the different sports. Now, if they'll follow through with what they're intimating is going to happen with facilities and whatever else needs to be done, that remains to be seen. But I've graduated in '90, and I don't recall positive, consistent support like that for sports programs. Maybe your experience is different, David, but I'm encouraged by those things, what I'm hearing.
That's very encouraging, Bernard. And it is extraordinary that Dr. Lee reached out to the 20 commitments we have, because looking at the class, Rivals has us ranked 28th in the country. Mm-hmm. So that's really impressive. We've got some really good players. So give Coach Mason a lot of credit for that. He's gotten some good players to come to Vanderbilt. We've got good players on our team right now. I mean, you look at our wide receiver core, those are some really high quality players. They look like NFL players. I mean, when you go Rockman and Cam Johnson and Chris Pierce, I mean, those guys are big time players. Ben Bresnahan is a fantastic tight end. We've got some real playmakers out there. So we got material, and we're getting more, and just getting the right guy in who can get them to win and do it right. And that's all we need.
Well, David, it's one of the things that we talked about with Alfonso, and I've had so many comments. It's really two big things, and these are huge things. One is the culture. The culture inside the program, the culture outside the program is not up to par. It hasn't been in a long time because it's been a mediocrity at the best over the last several decades, except for the Franklin era where we had a couple of outstanding bowl game years. Mm-hmm. It's been 2 and 9s, 1 and 10s, 4 and 7s, etc. But in that, when you're an alum and having played, when you see that year after year and then the decade after decade, it wears on you. And that's one of the big things that we truly are hoping that from a culture standpoint, dealing with the alums, the former players, who a lot of whom have never felt they've had a voice. or never felt they've had a seat at the table, so to speak. I don't mean it where they're decision makers, just where they can be heard and felt wanted. And I think that that has got to improve if you want to get the support like you really should have from other major programs, from your former players.
There's no doubt about that. But no, I love what you're doing. I mean, getting everybody engaged, it's just a huge thing. And we need our players involved, former players. I mean, that's just a tremendous thing. And we should make that happen.
Well, one of the things, David, that I really like is the fact that Dr. Lee is not only a former athlete at Vanderbilt, she's a 3-degree holder from Vanderbilt. So she knows what it's like to play in the SEC. She knows what it's like to play at Vanderbilt. While their basketball team, I think, went to the Elite Eight twice during her tenure, she knows what it means to be on a championship level. Mm-hmm. So I'm truly hoping that she's going to do what she says, because now it's her opportunity. Mm-hmm. Is that we just want to be heard. We just want to be able to be known that somebody's listening out and hopefully doing something about it. That's the culture on the outside. The culture on the inside is, when you lose every week and you're an athlete, you're going to give it your all, but gosh, that just wears on you to the point where it takes away your spirit. It takes away your confidence. And we've got to flip that. And I think that's got to come from whoever this next coach is going to be. And that's what leading me to, if you want to, from your research, from your, whatever your sources you've been, who's some of the leaders in the clubhouse?
Well, I'd say, Bernard, I've got my own personal list, and then there's the list that we have in front of us. And I mean, you're a guy like Clark Lee, the Notre Dame defensive coordinator. He's a national native, MBA and Vanderbilt graduate. He's a popular choice amongst some.
And he's, by the way, Will Healy is a member of this group as well. He was added. He doesn't contribute, but I just want everybody to know that he has access to read or watch anything because he is he is a member of our group. But go ahead, David. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Well, I heard him in an interview. He was very impressive. He's an impressive guy, loves academics and loves football. So he'd be a pretty good choice, in my opinion. Will Healy, the coach at Charlotte, is a name being bannered around quite a bit. And he hadn't done that great at Charlotte, or he did pretty well at Austin Peay, I think, but he's I don't think he's there yet. I think he's 36 and maybe needs a little more seasoning. He can be a good coach, but I think it's a little too early to pull the trigger on him. But Lance Leopold is another guy I'm hearing about, the Buffalo coach. Now he's an older guy, but he won 6 national championships at Whitewater College in Wisconsin in Division III, and then he's taken over Buffalo, and they've taken off. So he's an older guy. He's 56, 57, my age, but he's experienced and he's done well. But 2 guys I really like, Bernard, who have head coaching experience, and I think those guys are really for real, are Mark Napier, Billy Napier, and guy at Michigan State. I don't know what is his name. Mel Tucker. They're both really good coaches. I mean, Napier is a big name with South Carolina right now, along with Shane Beamer from Oklahoma, assistant Frank Beamer's son. Those 2 are the names being bannered about. But Napier, to me, would be a great choice. Mel Tucker would be a great choice. Jamie Chadwell, the coach at Coastal Carolina, is another name that's being thrown around a lot. Now, I do have a problem kind of with his NCAA violations. A couple of years ago, they vacated 18 wins because they played ineligible players, and players were using scholarship money to buy electronics and stuff like that. So his reputation is a little questionable. But those are kind of the names I'm hearing. Another guy I think is interesting, Bernard, is Charles Huff, the running backs coach at Alabama. He's a #1 recruiter in 247 Sports, and he's coached Najee Harris, and Najee Harris is a phenomenal football player. So he's interesting to me. Yeah. So there are a lot of good choices.
There are some great names and some great choices. One of my concerns, this is the big time. This is the SEC. This is the #1 conference. I personally, I don't want to coach for this to be their first head coaching experience. I think that they easily could get over their heads. Look at the competition of the coaches in our conference. You've got the best of the best, and it's already an uphill battle just coming in because we just don't have the depth that the other programs. I'll put our front line, our #1s against any #1s, but it's always a depth issue with us historically. But whoever it is, I think that Coach Mason's philosophy and the philosophy for recruiting, I loved it. We've got the best city in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the best conference in the country.
Yeah.
We've got the best academics.
Mm-hmm.
The missing piece is the football component. Why can't we be the gold standard? Like the Notre Dames, the Stanfords, the Dukes, even Rice at certain years, they've all had sustained success on a football level. Mm-hmm. And while Coach Mason was a defensive coordinator coming out of before he came to Vanderbilt, I don't think he had any head coaching experience.
No.
But that would be my concern, that any of these younger guys, and I could be wrong. The day I coach my first game will be the day I coach my first game. I'm just a former player who's enthusiastic about the sport and the program. Yeah. But they don't need to have wide eyes, and it shouldn't be an on-the-job learning experience. Whoever we bring in, that would not be good for the program, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bernard. I will say James Franklin was an assistant before he became head coach. He was never a head coach anywhere, so that's a positive if we were to hire a Clark Lee or a Charles Huff from Alabama or someone like that. But I will say I agree with you. I do like the fact that I would like a guy from like a Billy Napier or a Mel Tucker. Now, these names haven't been really talked about much, but those are personal favorites of mine because to me they're fantastic. They would be game changers for Vanderbilt.
And it really has to be. It has to be the coming together of both components. It has to have that support from Kirkland, from the administration, as at least now we're hearing from the chancellor and Dr. Lee, because I don't think that if I'm a current recruit, first of all, I couldn't get into Vanderbilt anymore, but if I was a current recruit being recruited by Vanderbilt and top-notch academic-oriented Division I Power 5 schools, mm-hmm. I look at those facilities, and there are high schools all through this country that have much better stadiums, gyms, weight rooms, locker rooms. That is unacceptable if we're going to be an SEC Power 5 school. And I know they know that that's an issue. Now, whether or not they find the money and get it done, that's what we're all hoping Dr. Lee can get accomplished very quickly.
Yeah, I do think Chancellor Dearmeyers really has talked about, and I think he's very active now. He wants Vanderbilt to have a football program that's like our school, that's like our academics. He wants excellence in every aspect. I think Dr. Lee shares that opinion. And like you said, 2 Elite Eights as a player, she knows how to win and she knows what it takes. So, we've got potential and we just got to execute with this coaching search.
I truly think that this is a pivotal time right now for our athletics department and for the football program. And I truly hope that whoever they bring on is able to be a real gangbuster and just bring everything together. But nobody has the crystal ball. But David, I want to thank you for sharing some time with us before we get out of here in just a few minutes. And it's, again, as I've said, your passion is as great as any Vanderbilt fan I know. And I hope you continue with that enthusiasm and sharing out your love for all the sports. I want to pivot away before we get out of here. I want to pivot away for just a minute, away from football and away from the athletic department as a whole, because you've got so much knowledge of the other varsity sports. that don't get as much. Our tennis program has had such great success in the last couple of years. Golf has set the world on fire. Soccer, of course, just recently won the SEC for the first time since the mid-90s. And our lacrosse program, the women's lacrosse program, they do an outstanding job. I don't know if many people know, and I think this is still the case. They compete, and I think it's called the Atlantic East or something like that. Florida is the only other SEC-based school in the same conference with all of these traditional big powers. But the coach at the women's lacrosse program, they hold their own as well. So it's exciting that Vanderbilt has all these other sports that are competing.
Yeah, it is, Bernard. I mean, Jeff McDonald just retired as women's tennis coach, but won a national championship in 2015. Mm-hmm. Scott Limbaugh, the golf coach, he's on the verge of winning one. He just got 2 recruits. Bernard, I'm telling you, they just signed. They're going to be phenomenal. We're going to win a national championship with these 2 guys. If we don't this year with John Augustine and all those guys, I mean, we got a good chance to win it this year. So that's really exciting. Those 2 programs. I'm not sure her name, but she's taken over from Jeff. I think she's going to do a phenomenal job as the new coach, and Jeff's going to be the assistant. And tennis is going to be great. Women's soccer has that's just a great story. That's an incredible story. So exciting.
I think Sarah's story is going to do more for recruiting for all of the women's sports at Vanderbilt than any other thing that has come up in many years. She's such a positive kid. I love her story. I know she's going to be, I think, one of 2 kickers, or maybe the only kicker for the Georgia game. I can't remember what I recently heard. But anyway, I certainly hope she gets a shot at getting some points this Saturday.
That'd be awesome, Bernard. I'd love that. I mean, you're right. It's a phenomenal story.
Well, David, thank you for spending some time with me tonight, for sharing your passion that we all on this group so share, and that's the love of the black and gold and Vanderbilt sports. So thank you, my friend.
All right, Bernard. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Anchor down.
Before we get out of here, I'm going to put in the show notes the link again to how to sign up for David's blog. And it's a couple of weeks from the end of the year. We're going to do a couple more next week. I've got Chuck Scott and his son, Caleb Scott, 2 generations of outstanding wide receivers for Vanderbilt in the 80s and in this past decade. So that should be a lot of fun, because Caleb, I think, is either a free agent or still hanging on maybe with the Seahawks. I'm not sure which program or which franchise, but please come back next Thursday. And remember, guys, continue to be safe, do the right things, and always anchor down.